Good morning, good afternoon. I'm Dennis Ward. Welcome to APTN National News. The final day of the Jeremy Skibicki trial wrapped up in Winnipeg on Monday with closing arguments from defense and the Crown. Skibinski is claiming he is not criminally responsible, or NCR, for murdering 4 Indigenous women due to mental illness. It's now up to the Chief Justice of the Court of King's Bench in Manitoba to decide if that's true. Our reporter Sierra Bettens has more on the trial from outside the courthouse.
We're here at the Manitoba Law Courts for the final day of the Jeremy Skibicki trial. We heard the arguments from the defense and the Crown. The defense is arguing that Jeremy Skibicki is not criminally responsible for the murders of 4 women, Rebecca Contois, Mercedes Myron, Morgan Harris, and a 4th unidentified woman the community has named Buffalo Woman due to mental illness. Defense lawyer Leonard Tallier opened the trial by arguing that Skibicki was suffering from paranoid schizophrenia when he killed the 4 women in 2022. To prove his point, he referred to records, including medical documents and CFS files, as well as UK forensic psychiatrist Dr. Soham Das's assessment of Skibicki's mental state. Court heard that Skibicki told a psychiatrist he felt compelled to kill the woman because he heard a voice from God. However, Manitoba Court of King's Bench Chief Justice Glenn Joyal noted the lack of a definitive diagnosis of paranoid schizophrenia. He also questioned how delusion alone could fuel Skibicki's sexual assaults. Outside the courthouse, Tallier was asked if he believes Skibicki was a racist man.
If he was a racist man, why was his wife Indigenous? Why did all the women he went with were Indigenous? You see? So it's a very curious admixture of these profoundly ill ideas, delusional ideas, with an admixture of racial components. Dr. Das says the same thing himself.
Afterwards, the Crown argued that Skibicki committed 4 counts of first-degree murder and that there was no evidence to support he had a mental disorder. They said Skibicki's acts were intentional, racially motivated, and fulfilled his sexual urges. Crown attorney Renee Lajemodier asked the judge to reject Dr. Das's opinion, stating it lacked credibility, had flawed and biased reasoning, and was factually weak. Crown attorney Chris Vanderhoof argued the murders were deliberately planned, using quotes from Skibicki's police confession tape as evidence. Vanderhoof ended the Crown's closing arguments by referring to one of Skibicki's Google searches, asking for the definition of a serial killer. The answer, Mr. Skibicki, is you, Vanderhoof said. On July 11th, Manitoba Court of King's Bench Chief Justice Glenn Joyal will provide his final judgment. Sierra Bettens, APTN National News, Winnipeg.
Members of the families of Rebecca Contois, Mercedes Myron, and Morgan Harris spoke on Monday afternoon. They were joined by First Nation leaders in Manitoba to react to the final day of the trial. Family members are meeting with Manitoba Premier Wab Kinew today for lunch and ceremony and further details on the landfill search.
I wouldn't wish anyone to ever sit in these shoes. Over and over again, we've sat here at these conferences, we've put our feelings and our emotions out there. You know, we grieved in front of the world essentially when we didn't have to, but we did it because we wanted to see justice, and not only justice for my mom, but justice for these 3 other women, Morgan, Mercedes, Rebecca, and Buffalo Woman, who still remains unidentified to this day. And so I want to draw attention to that too, that there's an Indigenous woman right now who still lives without an identity, and the only thing that can identify her is a baby fat jacket. And that's sad. That's really, really sad, and so I want to draw attention to that she needs to be found.
Even though court may be over and the search will be happening even after the search, we are not disappearing. We're still going to stand our ground. We're still going to fight for our women. You're still going to see our faces everywhere. We're not disappearing, Wab. We're not disappearing anyone. We're here to stay, and we're here to fight for our women, and we're going to bring everyone back home. We're going to find everyone's names, everyone's identities, not just Buffalo women, and not just bringing only our loved ones home, but everyone else's loved ones, because they deserve it as much as we do.
As we reflect on the conclusion of the trial and the impending verdict, it is important to remember that the pursuit of justice does not end in that courtroom. That's not where it ends. The conclusion of this trial is just one chapter in a much larger story of our missing and murdered Indigenous women and two-spirited people. A crisis that's been happening in this province of Manitoba, for years.
We'll bring you the latest on the meeting with family members and Premier Wabkanu tonight at 6 p.m. Eastern Time. And for more on this trial, you can head over to our website, aptnnews.ca, for stories by our web reporter, Kathleen Martins. And if you're triggered by any of these stories, supports are available 24/7 through the MMIWG2S support line. That number is 1-844-413-6649. Well, we're always looking for your feedback or story ideas. Here's how you can continue the conversation with us. If you have a story you want to share, you can send us an email to news@aptn.ca. To read and watch our stories, head on over to our website. That's aptnnews.ca. You can find us online on your favorite social media sites, including TikTok, YouTube, LinkedIn, and X. Follow APTN News to join the conversation and see our latest stories. Well, as you know, it's National Indigenous History Month. We'll bring you some of the events from Toronto after the break. Welcome back. The Ontario Science Centre in Toronto kicked off National Indigenous History Month with a free event. And as APTN's Annette Francis tells us, there was plenty of family-friendly activities and sharing.
The one-day event showcased some powwow dancing styles. There was an opportunity to learn some Haudenosaunee lacrosse techniques or play a game of Métis bingo or learn about traditional medicines. Elder Mark Salt from the Mississaugas of Credit fielded a lot of questions.
Like I say, a lot of people, when they see the chaga, and they have never seen any of this, a lot of them know what sweetgrass is, but when they see a tobacco leaf like this, they're not sure. What is that? So, and I always say, that's our first medicine, our first sacred medicine.
And according to Sean Lee Ying, that's why the Ontario Science Centre organized today's events.
We made a commitment to amplify Indigenous voices, but we also made a commitment to truth and reconciliation. So this is one of the ways that we're trying to meet that commitment, and we also want to make sure that when we amplify Indigenous voices, we're not just doing it ourselves, but we're working with the Indigenous community, because we want everyone to learn from the community itself.
Christy White is an award-winning First Nations author of a series of books called The Adventures of Jay and Gizmo. She says the book is about inclusion and education, and that's why her exhibit here is so important.
And that's essentially what we're doing straight across Canada, is showing up to places like the Ontario Centre. It's so important that Indigenous children feel like they belong and are represented in big urban spaces like the Science Centre.
And with a commitment to reconciliation, the public can expect to see more events like this in the future. Annette Francis, APTN National News, Toronto.
Fun-looking events there. Well, just as the school year is coming to an end, a Yukon First Nation education advocacy group has released new statistics surrounding graduation rates for Indigenous and non-Indigenous students. As Sarah Connors tells us, the First Nation group is pointing fingers at the Yukon Department of Education, accusing it of artificially inflating graduation numbers.
Here they come!
Last month, Yukon First Nations graduates walked across the stage to receive their high school diplomas. The Yukon Education Department says 71% of Indigenous students and 83% of non-Indigenous students graduated high school over an 8-year period.
Our next graduate, Dakota Jackson.
The department's numbers show Yukon's graduation rates are on track with the rest of Canada.
We need to start posting accurate data.
But an education advocacy group says those numbers are inflated. The Yukon First Nation Education Directorate hired its own team to analyze the territory's statistics. It calculated that over the same 8-year period, 47% of Indigenous students and 73% of non-Indigenous students graduated, and that number is dropping. The Directorate says the territory is only counting students who make it to grade 12 with the potential to graduate, meaning grade 12 students with all required credits from grades 10 and 11. But the Directorate included all grade 12 students in its numbers, not just the ones with potential.
I think the biggest thing is that if they're going to be publicizing that information, then let's make sure that it's an accurate piece of information.
The Directorate's team also found 40% of Indigenous students entering grade 12 did not graduate over those same 8 years. Bennett says many Indigenous students struggle with the territory's education model.
They'd rather be out on the land, or they want to choose options where they can train outside of school and don't necessarily look at that certificate as a value right now.
The Department of Education said in a statement to APTN News, in part, "We understand that calculating graduation rates for students who graduate within a 5-year period, or the typical amount of time to complete grades 8 through 12, only gives us one perspective. To capture more information about those who take a bit longer to graduate, we also report on the 6-year graduation rate." Bennett hopes painting a realistic picture of Yukon's graduation rates will help all students succeed in the long run.
Hopefully, all of that information will bring forth some things that we can proactively work towards to bring change for our Indigenous students and improve things in the system.
Sarah Connors, APTN National News, Whitehorse.
Thanks, Sarah. Well, that brings us to one of our poll questions this week. Should Indigenous graduates be allowed to incorporate cultural items into their cap and gowns? Yes, no, or unsure? You can weigh in on this and our other poll questions this week over on our website, aptnnews.ca. Pride season is also underway with celebrations across Canada to promote equal rights for LGBTQ2S+ people and communities. It's a time to make sure that everyone has a genuine sense of belonging. In Regina, at the Cowessess First Nation Urban Office, dozens turned out to show their continuing support for Pride Month. CTV's Mick Favel has more.
We are all sacred. It's the slogan Cowessess First Nation is using this year to mark Pride Month. To kickstart the festivities, the nation held a barbecue, inviting the community to come have a bite to eat, visit, and celebrate the inclusion of all. Shayla Wing is a member of Cowessess First Nation and has played an important role helping progress the LGBTQ2S+ visibility in her community.
We're breaking down different barriers now, right? You know, we want to create safe spaces for two-spirited people, people of the queer community. We want everyone to know that, you know, you're welcome, you belong.
People of all ages were there. Some of the seniors in the crowd are happy to see how far society has progressed, allowing people to be their authentic selves, something they remember was once kept hidden.
There was a lot of people that were just closet, you know, they'd stay in the closet, and even some family members really didn't know. But I think this is really important. It's awareness that, you know, it is part of us as First Nation people.
Everybody's born under the same sky, the same earth, and I think everybody should be treated equal. And no matter what, no matter if you're two-spirited or not, you know, I think it's I'm proud to celebrate it. You know, I'm proud to celebrate this day.
The nation's leadership echoes Joy's words. Pride Month, they say, is a time to not only celebrate how far we have come, but to remember the generations of people who had to live through hardships because of who they were.
For those of us who are allies or who identified other than straight, this is our opportunity to honor those lives that have been lost, as well as to celebrate and support those who are coming up and out.
Wing is looking forward to this year's Regina Pride Parade. She hopes more First Nations will get on board and join in.
We are all sacred. We all have a place in this world, and we shouldn't be ashamed of that. You know, we come from a line of very strong, beautiful people with a beautiful culture. And I think we should just embrace that and embrace who we are.
Making Pride a priority, not only for 1 month, but for all time.
2024 Summer Olympics in Paris are fast approaching, and a member of the Blood Tribe will be competing. We'll speak with Apollo Hess after the break. On the East Coast, it's 7 in Fredericton, sunny and 14 in Halifax. 16 in Kuujjuaq, 5 in Nain. Cloudy and 14 in Montreal, 13 under the sun in Val-d'Or. Sunny and 7 in Sault Ste. Marie, cloudy and 12 in North Bay. 14 with cloud for Thunder Bay and Sioux Lookout. In northern Manitoba right now, 13 with showers in God's Lake, 11 and rain in Norway House. 15 in Winnipeg and Dauphin, cloudy and 14 in Brandon. 13 in Regina, 15 in Saskatoon. 11 in Meadow Lake, 12 and sunny in La Ronge. Across northern Alberta right now, 13 in High Level, Peace River and Fort McMurray. 13 for Edmonton, showers and 25 in Lethbridge. Sunny and 17 for Vancouver, 16 under the sun in Kamloops. 12 in Prince George, cloudy and 8 in Smithers. 7 in Old Crow, cloudy and 8 in Whitehorse right now. 11 in Yellowknife and Norman Wells, 12 in Wrigley. -1 for Sax Harbor and Polituck. 7 and cloudy in Chesterfield and Whale Cove, 9 in Arviette. 3 in Resolute, -1 in Igloolik. The 2024 Summer Olympic Games kick off this July in Paris, and the Blood Tribe in Alberta will have something to cheer about. For the first time in history, a tribal member will be competing for a medal. Apollo Hess from the Kainai Nation near Lethbridge was named to Canada's 2024 Olympic team after placing second in the 100-meter breaststroke at this year's swimming trials. Apollo spoke with Creeson earlier.
Apollo, thank you for chatting with us today. First off, congratulations. How does it feel to have qualified for the 2024 Summer Olympics?
Hey, thank you for having me. It's a dream come true for me. This is just kind of everything I've been working for in my life. So yeah, just dream come true.
That's very good to hear. 2022 was also a huge year for you while competing for the University of Lethbridge. You won numerous medals, broke records there. What first drew you to swimming and competitive swimming?
Well, I think for me, the biggest thing was that in swimming, all you need is a lane, and pretty much I had a lot of it, like trouble with teams growing up and like making teams and being cut from teams. And so what I like most about swimming is that it doesn't really matter who you are or like what your name is, but just how fast you can get your hand on the wall.
Did your family or any of your parents get you into swimming at an early age?
Yeah, so I started swimming in swim club when I was about 6 and didn't really fully commit to it until I was about 14.
Right on. So it was always in your back pocket pretty much, eh?
Yeah, I'd say so.
The 2024 Summer Olympics are taking place in Paris starting at the end of July. What are you most looking forward to there?
I mean, there's honestly too much, I think, to put into one answer here, but the one really cool thing for me is that I'm the first Indigenous person, or first person or member from my reserve who's ever been to the Olympics. So I think it's a great honor for me, and that's something I look forward to doing, is representing my reserve on the international stage.
The pressure must feel a little immense, but I'm sure your coaches and all your family members are talking to you about the importance of being focused on the task at hand, hey?
Yeah, for me, I think most of the pressure was to qualify for the Olympics, and now I kind of feel like a little weight has been lifted off my shoulders in that regard. I honestly just feel mostly excited to represent my country, and yeah.
Was this the goal, to always make it to the Olympics?
Yeah, I think just growing up playing sports, most kids' dream is to go to the Olympics or the NBA, NHL type thing. So whatever the highest level of your sport is, I think that's always a dream. So that was definitely the dream for me. I knew from a young age that sports or being a pro athlete was kind of my calling, and it's something I always wanted to do. So.
You were recently honored by your nation in Kainai with a headdress. What did that mean to you?
It means the world to me. I can't even put it into words. Just to show all those people and young kids out there that are kind of like me, that you can do it if you just work hard and have a dream. You can make it.
Did you feel like that moment in Kainai was emotional for you? I remember when I got a star blanket from my First Nation. It was this love and acceptance that I got blanketed with. Was that the same feeling you got?
Yeah, I'd say that's a good way of putting it. I was surrounded by pretty much all my family and friends, and so yeah, it was super emotional for sure.
That's great. What advice would you have for those Indigenous athletes out there dreaming to compete one day at the Olympics?
I would just say, just find what you love doing and do it. It doesn't really matter what anybody else says or anything like that. Just if you love something and you want to pursue it, then just do it, and don't let anybody tell you that your dreams are too big.
Great messaging there, Apollo. Hi, thank you, good luck, and we will all be watching you compete with a lot of excitement.
Thank you so much for having me.
Inspiring story. Best of luck to Apollo. The 2024 Summer Olympics kick off Friday, July 26th. That's all the time we have for your first look at your APTN National News for this Tuesday, June 11th. I will be back with more tonight, including details of that meeting between Manitoba Premier Wab Kinew and family members who are calling for the landfill search to begin to bring home their loved ones. That and more coming up at 6 p.m. Eastern Time. In the meantime, you can keep up to date and find much more over on our website, aptnnews.ca. I'm Dennis Ward. Marcy McGuich, thanks for being with us. We'll see you back here in a couple hours.